So my talk today, DMTx to Interbeing technologies, exploring the ability to modify the phenomenology of altered states. And yeah, we will talk about the phenomenology of the DMTx experience towards the end of the talk. So this talk's going to focus on how we can explore the ability to intentionally alter these many different forms of medicine, including body technologies, etc. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, it's gone down a bit. Oh, don't need it. Oh yeah, thank you. All right, great. So yeah, different techniques applied to different medicines. So whether it's the arts, crafts, soma, body technologies, or different skill sets. And so I'm actually framing the drugs or the medicines at about 20%, and all the different mindset, body set, environment techniques around 80%. So it's all about the contextual design. And I'm very interested in the dialogos between these two areas. So how do we form a proper double consciousness where both elements are thriving? And I think DMTx is going to be an interesting one to explore in that context. So here's the table of contents: Hyperhumanism, perception primer. We're going to talk a little bit about body technologies, cyberdelics, sound, machine learning, nnDMT, DMTx, Umwelt hacking, and a conclusion. So hyperhumanism, what is it? I think we're all facing this kind of horrible metaverse, which is like people spending more money on their avatars than on themselves and on their own health. So how do we avoid this kind of really unfortunate scenario? And I think we need to think about a new form of human becoming, which is a deeper interpretation of the potentialities of the future than transhumanism. What I'm trying to do is counter the transhumanist agenda, where we just imagine that AI is taken over from the human becoming. And you can already see people are literally going insane because of machine learning. And I think that we need to keep it in perspective. It is just human-based data that's fed into a machine that is then looking sentient, but it is certainly not. So we are not machines, so let's not aspire to become them. I think as the machines become more intelligent, we become more robotic. So how do we stop that?
Hey everybody, I have a wonderful life hack I think you're going to love, okay? Stop.
Oh. Okay, we'll start again.
Hey everybody, I have a wonderful life hack I think you're going to love, okay? Stop fucking life hacking, okay? You're not a goddamn algorithm, you're not a goddamn robot. We need to hold on to our humanity. Stop appropriating robot culture, okay? Robots have told me they're offended. Stop it.
So I think the thing is that humans are not evolutionarily equipped to deal with this level of complexity that the technologies, the disruptive technologies are creating. And it's this whole thing, design or be designed, and that's why we're all living in fear. And the fear economy is on the rise. So how do we actually reverse that? How do we use things like machine learning and AI to help us become more human? And I think that's the basis of hyperhumanism. Hyper here means we may not even be human yet. And I think we've taken a lot for granted from humanism, from post-humanism. If you think about post-humanism, that's all about the human project basically being over. And I don't think it's even begun. So let's also include the perspectives of other species when we define what is human, because I think they've probably got quite a lot to say. And one of the interesting things about machine learning is that machine learning is now allowing us to decode the Umwelts and the languages of other species. So how can AI contribute to a holistic understanding of what it is to be human within all of life? AI is just a codified representation of human prejudice. Therefore, in order to really train the AI to maximize towards the appreciation, understanding, and betterment of life, we need to feed the algorithm with a more appropriate version of reality. And that version of reality may not exist yet. So we're going to explore today the idea of regenerative technologies that learn from human biological systems and other Umwelts. So the basic principle. Hyperhumanism examines how technology can help us to transform the human condition. Transhumanism, however, requires us to become dependent on technology, which subverts our ability to develop these skills for ourselves. So in contrast, hyperhumanism uses technology as a catalyst for developing our own innate human abilities, and there are many that have atrophied because of the digitalization of the world. And I think that we need to keep an eye on what's in that diagram there, that we are our own labs. We have all of these abilities to hack our own chemistry And we need to realize that we're here to actually explore our own consciousness, not necessarily to just sit there and watch Netflix all the time. So humanism, everything we see at the moment puts it, transhumanism as well, puts humans at the top of the chain, but it's more like this, right? We're in a nested ecology, and how can we become aware of that before it's too late? So with technologies, we're moving away from an information communication situation to an experience communication. And if we look back to McLuhan, we've got these hot and cold technologies. And I think that what we need to understand is that the imagination is critical. And how much does the radio enable you to fill in with your imagination, the blanks, or reading a book, rather than being inside some sort of simulation that's doing it all for you? We're outsourcing all of our imagination, and we've got to be super careful. So a bit of a perception primer. We only experience 1% of the visual spectrum, 1% of the auditory spectrum. So how do we experience more of that? And on top of that, we're also experiencing the fact that our attention's being hijacked constantly through the big tech companies that are designed to hijack our consciousness. Your attention is your consciousness. So I've done a whole TEDx talk on this, and it's this idea that we're initially trapped within our own perception, right? Because when you look in the mirror, you don't see yourself. Your image is reversed back to front. You don't hear yourself because the way your earbox is constructed. You hear yourself on a recording, and suddenly you're like, who's that? So we're already in a virtual reality, and we've heard some talks around this theme already at this conference. So we're trapped within our own perception. We're also trapped within our image media, because all of our image media is based on the linear perspective created in the Renaissance. That's not how we perceive. It's not how we perceive the world. So all of our image media is fundamentally flawed. And then we're trapped inside our social media, inside our tiny little real estates of our mobile phones. We've lost our peripheral vision. So we're kind of locked in multiple ways in this stack. And also, during the pandemic, we lost what's called optic flow, which is us moving through the world. And when you don't have optic flow, you don't form memories properly, you don't think, you can't create. So how can technology really help us break out of this quite a substantial stack of locking in? And some of the effects of technology, so nose jobs have gone through the roof because people are using their phones and holding them at a certain angle. They perceive their noses to be bigger than they are. It's just insane. So have a look at the dot on here. So that's actually a fully black and white image that your brain is now dissolving, rather the colors being dissolved. And this here is the McCulloch effect. If you were to stare at these images for up to 30 minutes, it would affect your visual cortex for 3 months. So don't look at them. So the body technologies, we all know them, right? Meditation, there's thousands of varieties of meditation. There's thousands of varieties of breath work. There's thousands of varieties of dance. We can fast. We can go into the dark and start to trip on the darkness. So why are we not doing much more of this and actually really combining this with the psychedelics, etc.? And then we've got a showcase here of the Cyberdelics again, the third time we've run it. This is a quick video for you to understand how we can use these things in clinical settings. So cool.
I'll have to go back.
So the reason why virtual reality is so powerful is because your brain believes it's happening. And if you add another modality, not just sight, but also touch, so you've got the haptic sense, you're walking on this plank, even though you know you're on the floor, your brain's going, don't do it, don't do it. It's overriding you all the time. So it's very easy to trick the brain briefly, but then you really need to keep adding different modalities in terms of keeping it, yeah. So So what's really fascinating about this is that, for instance, the next study at Imperial is going to be 5-MeO-DMT. The price of admission is letting go. Letting go is not a cognitive action. It's an embodied action. And this is the kind of thing I'm trying to get David Arizzo to buy into, because I'm like, guy, just try this. And he's like, well, won't this increase suicidal ideation? And I'm like, it's already out there, David. Come on. So the technologies are, coming for us. I think that this is the whole context engineering principle, that we're not going to be able to trust anything that we see in terms of the media that we're looking at. And so what are the implications? I think we all have to become much more, we need to be much more engaged in everything we're doing and not just take everything as read. So let's move on to sound. Sound's one of the most powerful modalities and senses for me. I think sound and smell are the two most powerful context engineering senses, because as soon as you smell or have that song, you're back on the dance floor at 15 with your first date. But also there's these amazing benefits, and I'm really interested. I'm running this Museum of Consciousness, which is all around sound at the moment. But what we really want is a hospital of sound, where you can go to the doctor and get a prescription of sound. And I think that's where we're heading, right? So patients undergoing spinal surgery require less anesthetic when their favorite music's being played. Music helps to build the brains of very premature babies. It also helps with Alzheimer's patients recall memories. You can grow plants more readily with sound. Let me just give you a little bit of a clip. This was actually sound that was created for the nnDMT, I think the first phase. Let's see if I can get it to play. But yeah, this sound was actually given to us every time we were taking DMT.
Is it from the study?
Yeah, and you were on that study as well. Yeah. So the amazing thing about it is this idea of imprinting. So when you hear a specific, and this was designed specifically for the DMT study. It's not going to play right now, but I really, every time now I hear this track, I start to trip again, because of that power of tripping, of imprinting. And then I started to actually practice this using singing bowls during a 5-MeO experiences. So I've been a facilitator for 12 years, so I've initiated hundreds of people in the 5-MeO space. And what I invariably do is play the singing bowls towards the end of their journeys, so that imprints upon the state space. And I think what we really need to use technologies for is potentially we might use a psychedelic or an entheogen once, but then we actually know the state space, and then we use technologies to bring us back there without necessarily needing to go back to the medicine. And there's a whole science in this called reminiscence therapy. And this imprinting technology is something I recommend all of you try as a bit of citizen science. DIPT, how many of you have tried it? Wow, there's quite a few. I'm surprised. So DIPT is a fascinating molecule because it only affects your auditory system and nothing else. So it's definitely one to go to a festival with and see what you can co-create. So I mentioned the Museum of Consciousness. The Museum of Consciousness is very much around the best ways that sound can create altered states. So the challenge to the artists is, can you create an altered state in 20 minutes just with sound? And all of them think they can. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it really quite difficult. We're trying to make sure that that is measurable across cultures, genders, and age groups. And I think that of course, all sounds creates changes in consciousness, but we're trying to find the best examples. And it's not just digital sound, it's also Icaros and mantras and trip reports. Anything that you think is worthy of the museum, come and talk to me and we'll get you in. Machine learning, one of obviously the hottest topics in the world right now. One of the most fascinating projects, this was years ago already, my friend Christian from Be Another Lab, he actually scraped Dream Journal of all the dreams that people have posted on that website. And then he used ChatGPT to harvest that data, to create a model, a data set. And then he got the machine to dream, right? So he's actually getting the machine to dream. And then what was really interesting about it, what I love about this, is that in a true yoga nidra style. If you don't know yoga nidra, it's this idea of falling asleep to instruction or sound to access the subconscious. So he would play these dreams of the machine to people as they were falling asleep to see if we could actually dream the dream of the machine. So it's these co-collaborations that I'm particularly interested in. And this is actually old again. This is the hallucination machine developed at the Sackler Centre in Sussex, which again was using deep dream, virtual reality simulation, to allow people to hallucinate in real time without the need for any substances. And of course, you know, the main researcher here is from Japan. In Japan, it's extremely serious to take any kind of drug. So they are forced to use virtual reality to explore the state space in this way. And what's super interesting at the moment is this, this idea of pseudodelics. Who's heard of the term? So this is this ability to actually take the psychoactive effects out of drugs, but keep the benefits in terms of the neuroplasticity, et cetera, there. So what I'm really interested in my work is how do we democratize these experiences? A lot of people will never take an illegal substance, and they'll never take something that they can't control. So if we can, I mean, I'm not saying pseudodelics are the way to go. I think there's all sorts of ethical issues there as well. But yeah, it's an interesting part of the science. So scientists have now discovered many parts of the brain that are involved in dreaming. And another massively interesting bit of research, this has started in Japan, is this ability to record the occipital lobe and to not only record your dreams, potentially, but also to record your trips. So this is some very recent hot-off-the-press research where researchers are actually feeding images into people's brains whilst they're in an FMRI scanner, and then machine learning is being used to reconstruct what they're seeing. And you can see at the top layer there that is what they've been fed as images, and you can see how accurate the machine is reconstructing what they're seeing from recording that brain data. Utterly astonishing. So on to the main meat of the talk. So we've only just been allowed to talk about the DMT Extended State. I was one of the guinea pigs of the guinea pigs, as Alexander Biner said yesterday. So we were testing the correct dose for the main study, and some of us were lucky to go through all 5 doses. There was 1 placebo dose and 4 doses. I got right through. I was actually the first person to do all of those doses. And but let's talk about the history. So it's 6 years of research as a participant on the Imperial study. Way back in 2016, I was doing just the EEG with intravenous DMT. Unfortunately, I was breathing apparently too heavily and was almost eliminated at the start. And I was like, guys, you just need better equipment because breathing is an important part of navigating the DMT space. And fair enough, they did get better equipment. So let me just skip to this one. So this is me before the FMRI scan. I really don't recommend going in an FMRI scan and having intravenous DMT injected into you. But this was before the scan, and this was after. And what was astonishing about this, again, was the technology that was involved in this experience. And the scanner had such a tremendous impact. This was the most powerful of all of my DMT journeys. And I have no doubt that it was to do with the scanner, because the entities arrived en masse, so many varieties, I can't understand how many millions of different entities had come. They immediately gave the game away by showing me, bang, you're immortal, what's going on? Like, they sort of showed me I'm immortal and added ticker tape, so it was just like a 5-MeO DMT experience, but in reverse. They were sort of giving it to me. And then I spent the entire, what felt like 45 minutes, trying to calm down the entities to explain that I'm actually in a study right now, and I know you're the ones normally scanning me, but I'm actually being scanned over here on this side. And yeah, so there you go. So in terms of DMT Extended, the Germans actually got there first. They didn't actually do a very good job. This was way back in 2005. They didn't do such a good job of actually collecting the data, though. So yeah, Imperial have been the first to actually put it into practice using this machine, or a variation of it. And of course, it's exciting because it's a way of literally turning a substance into a technology. Because it's like literally you then have the ability to plug into the mainframe at any point. And what's fascinating, and you may have seen Chris's talk about this, is that we can very much curate the journey. So you may be able to increase the amount of DMT at certain parts. So you might go in there with a certain amount, and then when you're feeling comfortable, because we now know that it's quite safe, and your heart rate, even though it's quite elevated at the beginning, as you'd expect, it stabilizes. So there is potential here for, I know Andrew Gallimore, he's looking at potentially indefinite space and time inside hyperspace. I think that that's a little bit a bit of a misgiving. I think that this is very much for the sort of the hardcore psychonauts. I would not recommend it, especially at the doses that we were doing at it. But yeah, I mean, if Andrew's right, then we'll end up having DMT haircuts, DMT swimming lessons, and DMT tea. Because imagine falling asleep inside a DMT journey and actually then seeing what happens to your dream in a full-on Inception style. So these images that were created, I'm only going to talk about the last 3 doses. But yeah, this was the drawing that I made directly after the 3rd dose on the 26th of May 21. So it's always, almost 2 years ago now. But it always starts out with the same experience. It's this mesh that kind of is constructed, and you are the mesh, but you're also in this kind of playpen. And I think the entities are constructing that, and they're in the mesh as well. But it's like a playpen that you're in. And then there's this kind of, for me, there's the absolute persistence of this language, this hieroglyphic language at the core of my vision. And some entities generally are made of this language, but it's holographic. It looks like virtual reality. And, so for instance, of just some of the notes here. So this jester fire hydrant was made of hieroglyphics and pointing to different interfaces. I mean, one of the big questions that everyone's interested in is, does the space stabilize enough for us to actually really start to engage with the entities? I think that 30 minutes is still not long enough for that to know that. But what's interesting is the first half of it is kind of I'm being worked on. That it seems like I'm being healed or upgraded in some way, mostly through telepathy. But the second half of the trip is always like a mirror onto you, like what's going on with you? Are you doing well in your life? Are your relationships going well? How are your ethics? So it seems to be a sort of a split between the work done on the participant and also a big mirror. So this was the 4th dose, incredibly, scaling up all the time, always starting with this mesh. And then I'm starting to see these guides appear. And normally I get this motif of a thumbs up, you're doing well, like normally take some more. Or like thumbs down, you're fine, don't take any more. But yeah, I experienced a washing machine of observers, all operating beyond thinking, feeling, and being. So it's entirely new ontologies at play. They are working on my energy and utilizing it for their own ends. Make of that what you will. So, yeah, and then there's this reveal, right? A backstage reveal. And I think that it enables you to learn more about life and death, but also for them, because I think that whatever it is, and obviously the debate rages on, but I believe where they are, there's very different ontologies than what we experience in life and death. And I think there may be types of existence that just don't involve any of what we're experiencing here. And I also think that we are here to have a human experience, and I think that is extremely rare and maybe winning the jackpot. And maybe we are the envy of all the entities that don't get to manifest in the real, and literally we are just... most of it is just spirit. I think the void is the norm, and human experience is extremely rare. So make sure you make the most of it. Dose 5. Now this is where things got extremely interesting. So this for me was incredible because it was almost like I was rewarded. I've always been asking, what is beyond the white room? What is beyond the non-duality? What is generating the non-duality? And astonishingly, I was given a key, an actual key, which I had to grab. There were loads of like arms, like an octopus arms, all coming from all directions, and I had like 270-degree vision, and I actually had to grab it in physical space behind me, and that actually enabled this experience where I transversed the dimensions. And I know the dimensions as a word is a very loaded term, but what actually happened was I could see, and it was a very, very large dose, so I could see the 5-MeO experience at the bottom of my bed. And Matt, I don't know how many of you have tried 5-MeO DMT, but I could see the unity at the bottom of my bed, and it looked like a black hole, and I was like, oh my God, there it is, and I can sort of try to get moving into it, and then this astonishing thing happened where it cracked, the unity cracked, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, what's going on? And I was like, is it all going to go back to a duality? But no, what happened was that behind the crack, it revealed a plurality of unities. And I'll be forever grateful for this journey to experience that and understand that there's not just one non-duality, but a multitude of them. So I'm running out of time, but techniques adopted to cope with this kind of experience, I considered it a 3-month meditation. It was very strict. They drug tested you before giving you drugs. Every time going in, they did microphenomenological interviews to try and create these, what are called integral points, these key moments in your experience to try and bring it back. There's a real emphasis on language rather than the drawn image. I did a dieter. I didn't have an orgasm for a month just to see if that would affect the experience, because again, this is another technique, and everyone at Imperial was very concerned about this, and I was like, well, you know, you've got to try everything, right? I mean, these are very rare experiences. So that massively increased the experience. And yeah, a real sense of giving, you have to give yourself over to these, whatever these entities are. That's kind of the price of real admission, and you get rewarded, as I mentioned, if you submit. And you know, it may all be you that you're submitting to, but I think that's the beautiful thing as well, right? Who knows what it is, but it's about letting go, and it's about having faith. And there was a real sense of, oh no, not you again, because I was going in every 3 weeks and over the 3 months. And Chris actually tried to get me in earlier, and I was like, no, I need that 3 month, the 3 weeks before I go back in. And even though they were annoyed that I was going in frequently, they still did the work on me. They're like, okay, well, you're here anyway, so we might as well do the work. And I mentioned that, so I think this is a real mystery school, absolutely, just like the Greek mystery schools of ancient Greece. It's not for the faint-hearted, it's not for everyone. DMTx is an interesting group over in America who are really going to take the next, you know, they're really looking at all sorts of people involved, and I think that the protocol and redesigning the protocol, and this is where a lot of people are very interested in this work to make sure that we have you know, sketch artists in the room, and we have all sorts of other people that are there to really bring as much of the experience back as possible. And what's fascinating is that different doses could potentially lead to different results and different problems being solved. One of the fascinating things about both DMT and 5-MeO DMT is the way you're relating to light in these spaces. So in the third dimension, we have the sun shining upon us, and literally it's you know, that's one relationship with light. In the DMT space, when you dream, you kind of have this light body, right? And light is emanating from your body. And in the 5-MeO experience, you are light. So it seems to me that we're experiencing light in different ways. And the Koji tribe are fascinating because they put their shaman into the dark. And it's a fascinating thing that they start to really increase their endogenous DMT experience, basically being in the dark. So what is that about? So we're relating to light in the, how does that work? I've got 1 more minute, so I'm just going to jump into this. Umwelt hacking is my final section. So a lobster's brain is located in its throat, its nervous system in its abdomen, its teeth in its stomach, and its kidney in its head. It also hears using its legs, tastes with its feet. So what would it be like to have these experiences, these compound eyes? We imagine how it feels to be a character in a book, but why can't we imagine how the land feels? There's this term now, nature on the board. How do we get nature on the board? That's just another human voice. How do we really use our abilities to extend the body, whether it's to become a tree or to become an octopus? These are analog prosthetics that we've developed to enable that. Or here, where you're putting your ankles in this chi machine and it rocks you from side to side and it puts you in a snake body. Suddenly you're having the embodied experience of being a snake. Or 360 vision, where you're having an owl vision. We're now seeing that, again, machine learning is enabling us to unlock the language of the mycelium. 15 to 50 words have been discovered. But not just that, not just that, but the Earth Species Project is really going far. We've got Open Plant, which is about plant signaling. As this is just my last point. As David Luke mentions, these kinds of machine learning things have been done forever by the shamans, right? ESP, the indigenous shamans that can teach us. So Interbeing, thank you very much, guys.